If you want to understand psychedelic research companies and the science shaping them, all you have to understand is future value. This is the number one thing that separates great investors from everyone else. In this video, I'm going to show you a company that's making medicines that could change mental health forever. That company is MindMed. So today I'm going to walk through exactly what MindMed's drug pipeline is, its financial position, the market potential, who's investing in it, and at the end, we look at what to watch out for in the future. Hi guys, I'm Alpha Zen. I've worked in finance and blockchain for the past 4 years, and I've worked as a regulatory lawyer for over a decade. And all I think about all day is where innovation meets value. If you want to navigate this market and ignore the short-term noise from the recent price action, first, you need to look at the bigger picture, to go back in time, to find out how it all fits into the historical arc of psychedelics. For over half a century, some of humanity's most promising psychiatric tools have been locked away, not because they failed, but because they were feared. In the 1960s, LSD and MDMA showed potential in clinical settings, helping patients to confront trauma and depression with unprecedented breakthroughs. But the cultural upheaval of that era sparked a political backlash. By 1970, these substances were classified as Schedule I drugs, deemed to have no medical value whatsoever. An entire generation of research was effectively frozen. Yet the science never really stopped believing. Underground therapists kept careful notes, researchers pushed at the boundaries, and slowly, as the stigma began to crack, a new movement emerged. One driven not by counterculture, but by rigorous clinical trials and peer-reviewed evidence. Today, we stand at an historic inflection point. Companies like MindMed are leading a psychedelic renaissance, racing to prove what many researchers suspected all along, that these molecules, used responsibly, could revolutionize mental health care. The question is no longer if psychedelic medicine will return, but when and how. Quick disclaimer, obviously none of this is financial or medical advice. Please contact a registered professional for any advice on these issues. So first, we're looking at MindMed's drug pipeline. MindMed is developing a full pipeline of 2 main drug programs, with a unique twist on a psychedelic substance. The first is MM120. This is MindMed's lead program, now entering phase 3 trials for generalized anxiety disorder, or GAD. And it's also being explored for major depressive disorder as well. MM120 is essentially pharmaceutical-grade LSD, delivered as an optimized, orally dissolving tablet. It's slightly different to regular LSD. It still acts on serotonin receptors. It's what's called a 5-HT2A partial agonist, which I'll explain in a moment, and it has psychedelic effects that appear to reset anxiety problems. Quick interjection for those not familiar with 5-HT2A. Imagine it like this. The 5-HT2A brain receptor is like a triangle-shaped hole. Serotonin is a chemical that helps regulate mood, perception, and thinking. And serotonin is like a triangle shape that fits perfectly into the 5-HT2A brain receptor. LSD is like a shape that looks the same basic triangle, but it has a few extra features. It still fits into the receptor, keeping it on in a slightly strange or prolonged way, and this leads to altered sensory and cognitive processing, the core mechanism behind LSD's hallucinogenic effects. Now, when Albert Hofmann first accidentally absorbed a trace of LSD in 1943, he became the first person to experience its mind-altering effects. That lucky event basically launched modern psychedelic science, and finally, we're here today at the edge of medical and regulatory approval. In a phase 2b trial, a single dose of MM120 produced a rapid and significant reduction in anxiety symptoms within days, an effect that lasted at least 4 to 12 weeks. Patients on 100 micrograms of MM120 had markedly lower anxiety scores than those on placebo, a clinically meaningful difference. The FDA was impressed enough to grant MM120 breakthrough therapy status for generalized anxiety disorder in early 2024, a designation that could speed up its development. MindMed's LSD-based therapy could become one of the first approved psychedelic treatments for anxiety if the phase 3 trials prove successful. And thanks to the special fast-dissolving tablet formulation, MM120 may work faster and with fewer side effects, like less nausea, than traditional psychedelic administrations. MindMed also holds patents for MM120's orally disintegrating tablet formulation, protecting its unique delivery method that enables rapid, consistent absorption, and those patents extend their exclusivity over the formulation into the 2040s. The second drug they're developing is MM402. Imagine harnessing the empathy-boosting effects of MDMA, the ecstasy party drug, to help people with autism. MM402 is MindMed's proprietary version of MDMA. The company believes that R-MDMA, as it's called, could treat core symptoms of autism spectrum disorder, such as social withdrawal, by enhancing feelings of connection and reducing social anxiety. The version of MDMA they use provides the pro-social empathogen effects associated with MDMA, but with less stimulant activity and toxicity. In theory, that means less risk of hypothermia, heart strain, and addiction potential compared to regular MDMA. MindMed completed a phase 1 trial of MM402 in healthy adults in 2023, showing it was safe and well tolerated at various doses. Now they plan to move into patient trials to see if it actually helps. What makes this drug special is that there are no approved medications that address the social or communication symptoms at the core of autism. Alright, I hope you can see MindMed is making some very interesting compounds that address serious and large-scale problems. MindMed's pipeline ambitions won't come cheap though, and that's where the recent fundraising comes in. Biotech companies often raise money by issuing new shares, and MindMed has done exactly that. The good news, MindMed is well capitalized. With the latest $225 million public offering, the company's cash war chest is now in the order of $480 million. Management confidently states that they have enough cash to fund operations through key Phase 3 trial readouts and into 2027. This means they likely won't need to raise more money before seeing those important trial results. At least for the next couple of years, bankruptcy or cash crunch risks are off the table. It's all about execution on the science. The bad news for existing shareholders is that a cash injection comes at the price of dilution. Issuing new shares dilutes the existing ownership percentage of existing investors. In simple terms, if the company was a pizza, it just sliced that pizza into more pieces. Each slice is now a little bit smaller, and by selling roughly 18 million new shares, MindMed expanded its total share count by about 1/3. Now, MindMed has fallen significantly in price since then, and the effects of the dilution shouldn't be ignored. But I think what's also driven the drop is likely a broader short to medium term market trend, and it doesn't concern me when making my own investment decisions. I always remind myself that what matters is future value. Turning now to market potential. Alright, so why all the excitement about psychedelic therapies? It's primarily because they could represent therapies that change people's lives for the better. And as an investor, it's because the market's MindMed targets are enormous, both in terms of the number of patients and the dollars at stake. Generalized anxiety disorder and depression are widespread and often inadequately treated by current medications. The combined global market for anxiety and depression treatments is currently around $20 to $25 billion annually, and it's expected to grow to over $30 billion in the next decade. Millions of people suffer from anxiety disorders, and many do not respond well to existing therapies. MindMed's one-dose psychedelic approach is radically different from taking a daily pill, and that novelty could be a selling point if it shows sustained relief. For autism, the opportunity is more about unmet need than direct market size today. A successful drug in this area would essentially create a new market. And finally, the addiction treatment space, if MM110 returns, is also huge and urgent. The opioid epidemic costs the US economy hundreds of billions of dollars annually, and tragically claims the lives of tens of thousands. There is a strong push for better treatments for withdrawal and addiction beyond methadone and others. In short, MindMed is playing in a multi-billion-dollar sandbox. The potential rewards are large if their drugs succeed. Of course, capturing those markets depends on regulatory approval and medical adoption, which are still hurdles ahead. But the sheer size of the prize underpins why investors are paying attention. With a market capitalization of roughly $1 billion, MindMed continues to attract significant support from institutional investors. Around 50 to 60% of the company's outstanding shares are currently held by institutions. According to recent SEC filings and ownership databases, BlackRock is the largest shareholder, with approximately 7 to 8% of outstanding shares as of February 2025. Blackstone Alternative Asset Management follows with about 4.7 to 4.9%, while other major holders include Vanguard, State Street, and several biotech funds. This level of institutional ownership signals that many professional investors see MindMed as a credible player in the biotech space, not just a retail meme stock. However, in 2023, activist investors, led by a co-founder, challenged MindMed's management over high costs and slow progress, trying to replace board members. Shareholders voted to keep the current leadership, but the conflict showed investors are watching closely and expect results. Nonetheless, MindMed maintains strong support by retail and institutional investors today. Alright, here's what you really need to understand. MindMed faces significant regulatory hurdles as psychedelic drugs remain Schedule I substances, requiring close FDA collaboration on safety protocols. The Breakthrough Therapy designation for MM120 signals strong regulatory support and should expedite approval discussions. But final authorization demands robust clinical evidence proving these treatments work safely and effectively in medical settings. The company must also build supporting infrastructure, including therapist training programs for supervised psychedelic sessions, or partner with organizations who handle that. This represents a high-risk, high-reward investment in mental health's future. Positive Phase 2 data showing dramatic anxiety reduction from a single LSD-based dose could revolutionize psychiatric care if Phase 3 trials succeed and the FDA grants approval. MindMed has substantial cash reserves, a deep and diversified pipeline, and serious investor backing. It could become an attractive acquisition or partner for larger pharmaceutical companies seeking entry into psychedelics. This would be a win for shareholders. However, late-stage trial failures remain a real risk. Even successful approval may mean slow, heavily regulated rollouts. The next 2 years, with Phase 3 results expected by 2026, will prove decisive for this frontier science. Alright, that's it for today. Next week, we'll look at another biotech pioneer. I hope you enjoyed this and took value from it. And remember, zoom out of the price chart and think about future value.